On a cold autumn evening in 2004, the quiet town of Odessa, Texas, was shaken by an unsettling crime. The body of 16-year-old Christina Thomas was discovered in a remote area, her lifeless body sprawled across the ground with signs of violent assault. Her murder was horrifying in its brutality, but it wasn't just the violent nature of the crime that made it chilling. It was the eerie circumstances surrounding it. For over a decade, the case would remain unsolved, with only fragments of evidence and vague suspicions to guide investigators. Tina had been a typical teenager in many ways. She loved sports, was a good student, and often spent time with her friends. But like many young people, she was caught in the chaos of teenage life, sometimes making decisions that were not always the best. On the night of her death, Tina had been hanging out with friends and went to a nearby convenience store before disappearing. The night she vanished, no one knew that it would be the last time anyone saw her alive. Her family and friends were left frantic, searching for answers as days passed with no sign of Tina. When her body was found weeks later, the discovery was gut-wrenching. Investigators immediately began piecing together the few clues they had. There were no witnesses, and the area where Tina's body was found was sparsely populated. The only leads they had came from her phone records, which showed some unusual calls made to a local man, 30-year-old Donald Don McCall, a man with a shady reputation. But at the time, McCall denied knowing anything about Tina's disappearance and was never considered a prime suspect. As months turned into years, the case went cold. But behind the scenes, detectives were not giving up. They kept digging into McCall's background, and what they discovered would send shockwaves through the investigation. McCall had a history of violent behavior and was involved in several incidents in which young women had been victims, though none had ever come forward to report him. Then in 2015, the breakthrough came in a most unexpected way. McCall, who had continued to live in Odessa, was arrested on unrelated charges of assault. While in custody, new evidence came to light that would ultimately link him to Tina's murder. A breakthrough came through forensic evidence, DNA. Investigators had preserved samples from Tina's body, and modern forensic technology allowed them to match McCall's DNA to material found on her clothing and body. When confronted with this undeniable evidence, McCall's demeanor changed. What had once been a simple case of denial evolved into something more sinister as he confessed to Tina's murder. He explained that on the night she disappeared, he had offered her a ride, but things had quickly escalated when she rejected his advances. In a fit of rage, McCall violently attacked Tina, before ultimately murdering her and leaving her body in a secluded area, hoping that her disappearance would go unnoticed. The confession brought a sense of closure to Tina's family, but also deepened the tragedy. For over a decade, her death had haunted them, and for many, the idea that a violent criminal like McCall had gone unnoticed for so long was almost as horrifying as the crime itself. What made the case even more chilling was that McCall had shown no remorse for his actions, and his history suggested that he had been a ticking time bomb all along. Donald McCall was convicted of Tina's murder and sentenced to life in prison. The case of Christina Thomas, one that had started as a dark, almost hopeless mystery, was finally solved, but not without a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the shadows, waiting to strike.